it's important. What David said about this election this year is so critically important. Never before, now I've been in the Senate 5 years. Some of you may have heard how I got here, maybe you haven't. But I represent a district that is a Democrat district in the Central Virginia. And when I ran, no one said we could win. It was a non-winnable seat. But at the end of election night 5 years ago, we won by 86 votes on election night. 86 votes was the difference between who took the majority in the Senate, and it was critical. It would be the second time since Reconstruction of the Civil War that Republicans would hold all three, the House, the Senate, and the governor's mansion. And that's when, as David alluded to, in 2012, Governor Bob McDonnell signed away that gun rationing bill stuff. So you can win in Democrat seats. You just have to work really, really, really hard. Last year we stood for re-election and we won almost by 63%. So there's a way to do it, and you just got to work hard and smart. And the reason we're here today is because Mike and I, what's your house district? 18. So Mike and I share a district down towards Culpeper County. And I had a lot of colleagues of ours when Mark Herring decided that he was just going to randomly take away your Second Amendment rights, start putting in legislation. And they were touting how we were going to fight the governor and do all these things. But the bottom line is there was no fighting to be done. The governor was going to veto any bill that came through. So for me personally, I was like, man, we got to figure out a different way, because the avenue we're going, it's kind of like the old charge of the light brigade. You know, you're just going to go and it's over. So I started to think, not just strategically, but tactically, how can we carry a big stick to the governor so he has to at least get to the table? And that was the ideology behind 610 and House Bill 1163. So Mike and I teamed up on this thing. And the other bills were going through, but I can tell you, I was the only guy in the room sitting at the governor's conference table with the governor, the lieutenant governor, the Secretary of Public Safety, Senator Chap Peterson, who's a Democrat senator from Fairfax, and the governor's chief counsel. So I was a pretty nervous guy. Plus, I was unarmed.
Because you can't carry a state.
Yeah, you can't carry in state buildings. So they think. So we initially wanted to do a one-for-one bill. That was my original brokerage deal that we came out with. We eventually got to a total of 6 bills. I had a bill that I wanted to originally drop about, the left is constantly talking about gun show loopholes, right? Oh, the gun show loophole, blah, blah, blah. I have some class 3 firearms guys that are dear friends of mine, deal with black firearms mostly, but they are, when they go to the gun shows, they do an enormous amount of business. And they want to help out, you know, an individual seller to make sure they're not selling a good gun to a bad guy, but they don't also have the bandwidth and the time to do all those background checks. So I had already drafted a bill for a voluntary program to do that. And I never dropped it because I didn't think the governor would ever sign a bill like that. But it's amazing how you can make something like that look very positive to the other side when they're under enormous pressure. And the logic that I had was, if I can get one of the Democrat senators to buy, just one, then maybe I can get 2 more to grow a spine. So in a matter of about 15 minutes, I think it was, I got Chap on, and I went and I got the other 2, because they said, well, if Chap's on, then I'll get on. And John Edwards said, if those 2 are on, then I'll get on. And I got them all to sign in about 15 minutes. So that was the stick that I went to the governor with. That was, as David said, the veto override. And then Mike had the same bill drafted in the House, and we started that process. Now, I'll tell you, the first 4 weeks of session this last year were pretty tough. Because, believe it or not, we had Republicans that were willing to try to kill those bills as well. Lots of Republicans wanted to kill those bills. But, amen, brother. So, what I wanted to tell you, though, is this. It's not going to get any easier. Mike serves on, and I'll let him talk for himself in a second here. Every year, and we don't know the bills that are going to be dropped this year yet. Every year they tend to continually try to beat the Second Amendment down. They just nip away at it and continue to nip away at it. The reality is we shouldn't have had to put in our bills this last year anyway. That's the real reality of it, you know. But I'm blessed. It was successful. We got it done, and it was a great opportunity for me to learn how that process worked. Let me talk a little bit about 2017, since I have the mic for a second. People have asked me several times, and a bunch of our colleagues, if I consider running for higher office. And I said, well, I'm pretty happy in the Senate. I just got elected my second term, doing some great things. I've carried bills for service animals, for our veterans, to offshore drilling bills, and 62 pieces of legislation in 5 years. Good stuff going on. And I started looking at it, and if we could take a contentious issue like guns between the two parties, a political governor like Terry McAuliffe, and get to the table and hammer out a good deal and win, then my logic is this, and you have to understand what the lieutenant governor's job is. How many prior service military folks are here? Oh, that's a lot. Okay, so I'm going to speak in military terms here for a second, because I was a dumb infantry officer, airborne ranger type. So that XO slot is a very powerful slot if you allow it to be so. If you look at our history of our lieutenant governors, what do they typically do besides break tie votes in the Senate? Not a whole lot. But that's because nobody has the vision for that office that they need to have. And the reality is if you have the relationships, which I have in the Senate now with the House and my colleagues, you can be the fulcrum to actually get meaningful things done and not have to expand your bandwidth to do 100 different things during one session. I can do one or two things and do them really well. And so that's why I'm running for lieutenant governor. I want to work on tax reform. We were talking earlier in the back about personal and corporate income tax. We got to get people off of welfare. It's draining us. It's just draining us. A single mom with 2 kids in the city of Richmond has to be incentivized to raise over $50,000 a year, make $50,000 a year before they want to come off the welfare bill. In Fairfax, it's $80,000, and that's unskilled labor. Unskilled labor, $80,000. So I'm looking at the earned income tax credit to look at that. And the last thing I've been involved in the last 5 years is the security of the Commonwealth. And really that's where my heart is. We have 29 military installations in the Commonwealth today. I'm on a few other committees. One really important one, I think, is the Commission on Military Installations and Defense Activities. And that's the state level response to sequestration and BRAC. And we can talk offline about some of those things and why that's so important to the Commonwealth. But that's why I'm running. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. I love what I do in the Senate. I love working with my colleagues in the House. I'm not the guy who throws grenades on the floor. Every once in a while I'll throw one. But I'm the guy that wants to get things done for the good of the people. And I don't care who your mom or dad is. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If we can see eye to eye and get the right thing done for the people I represent. Let me just do it. David, can I introduce Michael? So,
I don't know, again.
Well, you wore a tie to a shooting event, so no, I'm kidding. I did too. Michael, you got the same year I did, didn't you? We came in together. Okay. The best thing Michael Webert ever did was marry his wife, because she's a fighting Texas Aggie like I am, so that's the first thing. Mike is probably one of the foremost authorities in the House on agricultural and farming bills and those sort of things, because he's a farmer by trade, but not just a low-end farmer. I mean, he does some amazing things with what he grows and his cattle and all those things. And for me personally, he's been a dear, dear friend of mine for a lot of issues. And what you'll find is your members of your General Assembly, you have people you work with day in and day out. The first 4 weeks of session, I can tell you, were very, very stressful for me, because I was the only person talking to the Democrats. And Mike had the same bill in the House, and I can't tell you how many countless times he was either coming up or I was going down to his office to either blow off steam or help me strategize to get this stuff across. He's been a warrior. He's just been a fantastic representative for his folks. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my good friend, Delegate Michael Webert.
Thank you. You can introduce me from now on. Ladies and gentlemen, when my aide, Robert, approached me about speaking to you all tonight, I was like, well, this will be easy. I'll just talk about gun legislation. We'll talk about elections. We'll talk about what you all have been hearing for the last how many months? And I'll just say it's very important. But I would like to say that the experience that we had with 1163 and Senate Bill 610 was a unique one in that we had to have a really good working relationship because that piece of legislation went under numerous drafting. And my office mate, Todd Gilbert, and I sit on a subcommittee in the House that the gun control folks affectionately call the killing field. Every piece of gun legislation that you can imagine from a Democrat legislator involving gun control comes before the subcommittee that I sit on. We see every single one of them. And so when we started the process for overriding the concealed carry, here's how, let me explain something. Here's how good, okay, I'm never going to negotiate with this man, ever. And I'll tell you why. Because the original piece of legislation in 1997 said that the superintendent of state police may enter into reciprocity agreements with other states upon recommendation of the Attorney General, right? So the Attorney General recommended that we don't. The superintendent of the state police, who by the way is controlled by the executive branch and our governor, said we're not going to. The piece of legislation that we now have, or that we passed, says the superintendent of the state police shall enter into reciprocity with other states that have these. Out the executive branch and the attorney general. They don't have a say in it. They shall do this. They shall enter into reciprocity. So as other states come in line and more agreements are made, the only thing that we can do is expand the reciprocity. That's why I will never negotiate with Bryce Reeves. Okay? But let me also say that Todd Gilbert, my office mate, also had a big part in this because with his knowledge of our firearms laws, we were able to craft a really nice piece of legislation to get it through. Now, over the course of the 5 years that I've been in, we've been able to accomplish things. We mentioned the repeal of the one gun a month. That was the chairman, Delegate Lingenfelter, that carried that bill. But we've also done, felony reciprocity. We've done Sunday hunting. We've done, what else have we worked on, Robert?
We've worked on.
Oh, you only need, as of July 1st, you only need your driver's license to purchase a firearm. So you don't need two forms of ID as long as you have your home address. It's just my wife purchased her 20 gauge the other day, and it was only hey, just show them your driver's license. It was nice. So we've worked on these things over the years, but the interesting thing is whenever anything happens that involves firearms, almost anything, our colleagues on the other side of the aisle take it and they want to run with it and they beat it down our throats. Literally. There'll be 30, 40 pieces of legislation that we will have to look at and have to deal with. And it's getting really tough. Okay? It's getting really tough because they just keep coming. And when you have to deal with an executive branch like we do with our governor, and you have to sue them on a regular basis, I'm sure Bryce would tell you he's probably tired of suing the governor. Now granted, we're doing very well. We tend to win. Because he doesn't adhere to the Virginia Constitution law, which is one of the reasons why we're beginning to look at strengthening Article 1, Section 13 of the Virginia Constitution that deals with your right to own a firearm. We want to make that right unalienable, and we want to make any gun control laws that are passed, because Lord knows Bryce took to help us take the majority in the Senate, right? We're at 21-20. It could be next year we could be flipped. So gun control laws could pass. We want to make sure that the Virginia Supreme Court looks at them under strict scrutiny so that they can't take away our firearms, our right to own a firearm without strict scrutiny. And I just, quite frankly, I want to make it really hard for them to take my guns. You know? Folks grow up, the folks that represent Arlington and Hampton Roads, they grow up without even handling a firearm. I grew up handling a firearm. You know? We had a fundraiser today. It was a clay suit up in my district. You know, the guy I brought out my Benelli Nova that's camo dipped, and they said, "Well, that thing's beat up." I said, "Yeah, that thing doesn't leave my truck starting after duck season." You never know when anybody's going to call you and ask you to do something. So those are the things that we're facing. That's why I ask you, when you, not only the presidential year, but I'm actually really excited about next year. Okay, we're going to have a slate of candidates that know how to get things done. And I urge you to look at all the candidates and look at, particularly since we're talking about firearms, look at how they handle themselves when it comes to firearms, when it comes to defending your Second Amendment rights, when it comes to putting in legislation. If that is important to you, I suggest you look at every single candidate and see where they stand. I think next year we're going to have a good set of candidates that will be able to vocalize our position, win the moderate votes, and we will hold the executive branch as well as the legislative branch in 2017. I honestly believe that. So do me a favor and really look at the candidates. I can speak very highly of them. Very highly. He and I came in together. Now, here's a funny story about Bryce. Okay. I know. Well, honestly, when we started working on the concealed carry legislation, I was walking into the building. I commute, so it was almost 9 o'clock. I'd been up since 4, and he grabs me and hauls me into the Senate post office thing, and he's like, "Oh, we got a deal." And I was like, "Oh, thank God, because you're an Army Ranger, and I don't feel like getting kicked." But this man, when we were working, we were at an event for the Culpeper Farmers Co-op annual meeting. And I looked over at Bryce, and I swear to God, he was asleep with his eyes. I said, "Bryce, you know this man, I've been working hard." Well, it turns out he worked really hard because he went up against how many years? 28 years. The man had been in office 28 years. And Bryce Reeves took it. Okay, so that we could gain control and begin to expand our firearms rights. So, ladies and gentlemen, I truly appreciate the honor of being here tonight, simply because it's always nice to talk to like-minded folks. But I also want to express to you that your volunteerism, you're working hard on our behalf, on behalf of the Second Amendment, on behalf of Article 1, Section 13, is really how we get to where we need to go. We need folks in office that see the way we do so that we can continue. Because I think the next generation is beginning to realize that government is not going to solve all their problems. And government is not going to keep them safe. And how do you keep yourself safe, especially in my district when the nearest sheriff's probably 10 to 15 minutes away? The 9mm that's in my gun safe. And I think they're beginning to realize that. And so if we can vocalize this and let people know that it's not a matter of personal public safety. And your own personal safety, I believe that we can take these offices in 2017, and I believe that we can take the presidency in 2016. So thank you very much for the honor to be here and speak to you. And who do I need to hand this thing over?